Welcome to Inside APG, creating one community without a gate. Now, here's your host, Tracy Hart.
This is Tracy Hart with Inside APG, and I'm really excited to be sitting here today with Colonel Gordon Graham, who is the ATC Commander, and Kimberly Fillinger, who is the Environmental Scientist for ATC. Colonel Graham, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Well, thank you, Tracy, for coming by today. I look forward to this opportunity just to give yourself and your listeners a little bit more insight about our mission here at Aberdeen Test Center, and I think it's going to be beneficial for the mission and the community at large. So thank you.
I know what ATC stands for, but for our listeners out there who are completely unfamiliar with the acronym, what does ATC stand for?
ATC stands for Aberdeen Test Center. We are a subordinate to the Army Testing and Evaluation Command. Our overall mission is essentially exactly as the title indicates. We test stuff. Our primary core competencies tend to revolve around testing automotive vehicles. So the typical test that you may see on TV where you see the guys on a test track with a particular car, well, we do similar with military vehicles. And so we have extensive test courses here that we are testing the suspensions and things such as gas mileage, things along that nature. For today's purposes, probably one of the things that's most pertinent to you and your audience is our other mission with regards to survivability. So we do a lot of testing that involves explosives, where we are testing the vulnerabilities and the capabilities and limitations of those vehicles and their effects and impacts of explosives on that type of material, not only on vehicles, but a whole menu of Army materials. And so when we talk about noise, a lot of that noise is a resultant of doing those type of tests.
Okay, so you bring up the big word, which is noise. That is something that the community does associate with Aberdeen Proving Ground. So what is it that is making the noise all the time when you hear the big explosions?
Sure, Tracy. So as I stated, we do a lot of vulnerability testing. And as we have been fighting the wars over the last couple of years, I'm quite sure yourself and community at large have heard over the news about the explosions that some of the soldiers have faced, whether it be while they're on patrol, whether it be while they're in the vehicle. Part of our mission is testing materials to reduce injuries and to preclude those type of events in real life in those war zones or in the theater operations. And so typically what happens here, a contractor or program manager within the Department of Defense, they bring us their articles and we literally blow it up. Just to make sure that a particular piece of equipment can appropriately perform once to get into a real war zone, and more importantly, that will provide the sufficient protection to our soldiers who may be using or being transported in those particular assets. So that's a pretty extensive mission. Almost on a daily basis, I have over 800 tests ongoing. And so when we talk about the amount of testing, the amount of explosions that you may hear over a given time period, well, it's due to the fact that we have quite a large portfolio of systems that may be undergoing that type of testing.
When you're talking about the different types, because you do hear different types of explosions. I mean, you do get some of the real big ones that shake maybe some of the things in the house, and then you hear some little ones.
Again, in our portfolio, we have things as small as body armor and vests that you would put on your actual body that's going to provide the personal protection for individual soldiers, and it scales all the way up to vehicles. One of the great examples is the mine-resistant ambush protective vehicle. That is a troop-carrying capability, can house up to 8 to 10 personnel. And the explosive blast, in order to test what that vehicle can withstand, takes a large explosive event to really stress that system. So to answer your question, certainly for small items, obviously, you're going to have a small explosion. But for the larger vehicle items, you really want to stress it as much as possible because that is a type of explosive that you're probably going to encounter for that particular asset once you get into a theater of operations.
When do you test the bigger explosions? Is there kind of a schedule that you guys have? Is there a standard schedule?
Yes, Tracy. We do have a standard schedule. In general terms, it runs from 8:30 in the morning to approximately 10 p.m. at night. We try to confine our explosive tests to the weekdays. But again, even though we do set those parameters, because we are supporting a real-world mission, due to criticality of the results of a test that may call for us to step outside of those established time frames. I'm going to turn it over to my environmental scientist, Ms. Kimberly Fillinger, and she can provide a little bit more technical, in-depth details on how we figure out those parameters.
Tracy, we fire every day, Monday through Friday, as Colonel Graham said, 8:30 a.m. to 10 p.m., except for federal holidays and our morning calibration shot. Saturdays, we fire from 9 o'clock to 4 p.m. Sundays, we require special approval. Noise is a significant determinant in whether we allow a program to go or not. Winter is cool, cold, thin air. Noise travels more easily. Summer, hot, humid, kind of absorbs the noise, so then people off post don't hear that quite as often. So those are things that we take into consideration. And our morning cal shot will help us determine, running models, where noise may be heard off the installation, and allows us to make the decision on whether the criticality of the program versus the possibility of disturbing our neighbors.
Is there a way to have an idea ahead of time how much noise will be associated with these explosions before you test them?
Yes, we have a computer model. Every morning we put a weather balloon off at our weather station in Spasudi Island, and that data is fed into our noise model, and then we put in the weight, the height, the range location, what time we're going to be firing. All that gets fed in, calculated out, and it actually shows patterns off the installation, and it shows decibel levels. That's how noise is measured. And we look at those levels to determine if we feel that we will disturb people, and we go from there making our decision for the day.
Now, people hear these explosions, as far out as, say, Kent County and Queen Anne's County. And I've heard from Kent and Queen Anne's that they can hear them consecutively, consecutive days. Why is that?
That's a great question. One of the main reasons they do is because in the Edgewood area, we have a tank gunnery range, the Mark A. Henry firing range, that is one of only two ranges here at APG that we do moving vehicles at moving targets. And when you do that, you're shooting numerous rounds from the gun in a succession. And then there'll be a pause, and then there'll be another succession. So that's what Kent County and Queen Anne's hear. They hear that consecutive and a little pause, depending on what test it is, how long that pause is, and then they'll hear more. And normally those tests go on for several days in a row. So it just keeps going and going. And in wintertime, like I said earlier, the cold air propagates the noise or make it travel a little easier. And so in the wintertime, that tends to go across the bay and disturb those communities sometimes more than other times of the year.
How often do you guys receive phone calls or receive questions about the noise and the explosions?
Over the past 10 years, we would average about 55 noise complaints or calls a year. Those historically are from Kent County, majority of them are, and they were usually received in the winter months, January through March. Like I said, we talked about earlier, the cold air and also the water plays a part in why those get heard at that time of the year more so than the summer months. Firing, like I said, is every day. It's the weather that changes what people are hearing.
Is there some sort of a federal regulation or some sort of criteria that the government puts down on the noise?
The federal government actually doesn't have regulations for military testing. However, the Department of Defense has a widely used metric that determines when we can fire or not fire and disturb people. APG does have its own operational noise management plan that outlines how calls are handled once they're received, how we monitor the noise complaints, monitor our noise levels, and how we operate on a day-to-day basis with noise management.
If I may, Tracy, just to add on to that, my role as ATC Commander, along with a lot of the other senior leaders, we intensively manage the noise. And so, to give an example, when we predict that particular explosive event is going to be at 130 decibels, it takes my approval to go forward with that event. And in some cases, we do continue to go and conduct that event. Mainly, it's a weighing of the mission and why we're doing the test versus what the potential impacts could be for the local community. So if the event or if the test itself is to support a significant operations in theater, well, obviously national defense, things along that nature, may outweigh or overbalance and allow us to make the decision to go forward with the risk of the repercussions of that particular explosive event.
Well, and I think that if people in the community understand the importance of these testing on how this will save our soldiers in the field's lives or will help with that, I think people will be extremely understanding and have no problem with it. So how are you reaching out to the community to let the community know that this is what's going on and this is why it's happening?
So we have an extensive outreach program, not only for just noise, but for all the activities here at ATC. I use it, for instance, a lot of our tests may involve the water, the Susquehanna, Chesapeake Bay, which surrounds APG. And so certainly we want to get out to the boating community and make sure that they are aware of what kind of testing events we're doing here. Specifically for noise, we do go out to the community. We give them opportunity to engage us, to ask us questions and understand what events and what are the contributors to the noise within the local community, and even ask questions with regards to, similar to what you've asked, what safeguards do we put into place to make sure that we're not breaking windows or impacting households. And so it's really a team sport with ATC and APG and the local community with managing noise. I need to know if I'm having an impact on your particular community, and I need to communicate to you why you may be realizing that impact, and perhaps there may be other safeguards that we can do to limit and diminish that impact on the local community. So really it's a local team sport between the two entities, APG and the local community itself.
So then that poses the next question as to where do people in the community, if they have questions or they do have concerns, or where do they need to go? Who do they need to talk to?
Okay, so the two primary means we do, APG has a Facebook account or a Facebook access, and so certainly those with access to their internet would have the opportunity to make their concerns known via Facebook. And also we have a 1-800 number, 1-800-688-8705, and that is the noise hotline. And participants within the local community, should they experience noise or should they have a question about noise, certainly they can call that 1-800 number and get a readily response on what activities we may be doing at a particular time that's contributing to what they may be hearing or even feeling.
Well, I really appreciate it. I think that this information is valuable for our listeners, again, to explain what is going on, why they are hearing these explosions, but then for them to understand that it's because you're testing things that will help save our soldiers' lives. So I think at the end of the day, I think that's the information that needs to be out there, and I think people are absolutely going to be behind it and support it. So thank you so much for, both of you for sitting here and talking with me and answering the questions that we have. So thank you so much, both of you, for talking with me today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Tracy. And anytime there's questions from the local community, we always look for an opportunity to share our mission. We really want to share not only what ATC is doing to support the nation, but really it's what the local community is helping ATC and the Department of the Army in accomplishing the mission. And certainly noise, putting up with the noise disruptions from time to time, though it can be quite a bit of a nuisance, I can assure the local community is for a very worthy cause. And so thank you for visiting us today.
This has been Inside APG. To learn more about this program or about 970 WAMD, visit their website at khztv.com.